Hey, sales friends, Mike Weinberg, and I've got a real treat for you today. I've got my good friend Les Hewitt coming in all the way from Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. What is going
Hey,
on, Les?
great to be here, Mike. You're
Hey,
looking
Happy New
well.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, give me a little Canada weather report. What's the winter status up there?
Snow -9.
-9, your numbers, right? That's cold.
Yeah, not too bad.
That's I don't know. We're
Minus
having kind of a
30 is
warm.
cold.
Yeah, we're having kind of a warm day here in the Midwest. Hey, I've got Les with me today because it's New Year's, and I thought this was just a perfect topic for my audience. Les is probably the foremost expert on this planet when it comes to focus and the power of focus. In fact, that's the name of his #1 New York Times bestselling book, The Power of Focus, that he co-authored with Jack Canfield and Victor David Hansen, right? Is that correct?
Mark Victor Hansen.
Mark Victor Hansen. I messed that up. So Les is the co-author of that book. It sold about 4 trillion copies and helped more people, more people than you can count. And Les, focus seems to be in such short supply today, especially with senior executives and the salespeople that I work with, because they're just so distracted. Why do people have such a hard time focusing today? Because it's killing their results and their quality of life.
Yeah, totally agree. I've been in this game for 30 odd years, and the stress around focus and getting results hasn't changed very much, all the way up to the top levels. So of course it's distractions. Our technology today is great. You can contact anybody around the world practically anytime you want. However, social media is a huge distraction. You get on to find one thing on the internet, and an hour later, you're all over the internet. Facebook, on and on. Distractions from people, interruptions, phone calls, and a lack of ability, I think, to really be motivated enough, Mike, that your most important priorities, your top goals for this year, are front and center, and that's not happening. People just get distracted. And a big
So
part of that for me is, I think, if it says to me that your top priorities are not really top priorities. You're not motivated enough to stick with whatever this thing is that you want to see happen this year or this month. And it's too easy to be distracted. So yeah, absolutely, there's a self-discipline required here. And the good news is it's possible. You can really do some things that will increase your focus.
Okay, you said a ton right there. Can I ask you to tie two things together? Because this is where I'm trying to help salespeople. You talked about motivation, and I would translate that as well into heart engagement. So our hearts and our minds are aligned, and we're passionate about what we're trying to achieve. But you also use that dirty word, the D word, discipline, which I find is really in short supply as well. Especially because a lot of the executives I'm working with or salespeople, they're so busy, their companies are running so lean. So what are some of your best tips for this audience to combine discipline and motivation? And I know you've got some things you really advocate in terms of a life movie and some visionary things. What are you doing to help your clients really lock in both their mind and their heart so they are not just focused, but also motivated?
Well, it goes back to awareness. I think there's a big lack of awareness about clarity. When I talk with business owners and leaders in business, and these are experienced people, Mike, I find that they're not that clear. They have some goals, but is it really driving them? Are they clear? Is it, why am I doing this? Is there a purpose behind it? Is it meaningful? I mean, all those things are not just buzzwords. They're real issues. So one of the things I do to get that clarity to a whole different level, without going to get into a whole lot of detail here, but we're a movie. So I'll sit down and we basically create a slideshow. It's a sophisticated slideshow that actually breaks your life into categories. There might be 4 or 5 categories. And then you take a real hard look at what is it you really want, say, for this year. And we end up with a slideshow that's very powerful statements that are also aligned with great visuals, the power of visualization. And the one thing we do to get the emotions moving is we layer a favorite song or a piece of music, when the person hears that music, it just really grabs them. It really pumps them. But this is a far better way to put clarity and goals together, and it's long term. I usually have a 3-year window minimum to do that. That's the very first thing I do with all my clients. We don't go anywhere until they get that. And the reason for that is, if they're truly excited and know exactly what they really want, then we can get to the plan. Then we can get to the focus. But without that, I think a lot of this motivation is really false motivation. People aren't clear.
Wow, that is powerful. That's one heck of a tip. And while we're on that topic of high performers, can I just ask you this, because I know that many of your clients are extremely successful, and you're regularly talking with people that are ultra high performers. What sets them apart? How are they better at focusing, whether it's on goals or their calendar or eliminating the distractions? I know earlier you and I were just chatting, and you also talked about routines and early morning routines, evening routines. What are you seeing the very best, most focused, highest performing people do that totally sets them apart?
Well, first of all, just to go back to that awareness thing, I think they're purpose driven. They have a very strong why about what they're doing. That's what gets them up in the morning. I think most people aren't at that level. And, getting into the practical side of it, how do we prevent these distractions and interruptions? What I see is a lot of people just with big to-do lists every day, Mike. It's just, and what happens, the to-do list doesn't get finished. There's too much on it. They roll it into the next day. Then they roll it into the next day. Suddenly it's Thursday, Friday, and the to-do list hasn't been done. And what do? They take the work home on the weekend, and they totally mess up their family life. So, quick tip, design your week. Stop doing these daily to-do lists. Spend half an hour on Monday or last thing on Friday afternoon maybe, and design your week. What are the top 3 things that you got to be finished by Friday? And then we go into focus time. You put your calendar in front of you. You pick those 3 things that are most important, that'll drive you closer to the bigger target. It might be a monthly target or quarterly target or whatever. And focus time means you only concentrate on one thing for that amount of time. It could be 15 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be half a day. But you only focus on one thing. This multitasking,
one thing per focus block. That's what I'm hearing you say. We don't multitask. We don't get distracted.
Multitasking's a myth. If anybody tells you they're more effective by multitasking, they're lying. And here's the great news. You only need 4 or 5 blocks of focus time a week, and you'll be far more productive, far more focused than everything. You can't focus 100% concentration 7-8 hours a day. It's impossible at that level. And the good news is you don't have to do that. But if you get the calendar out, you just pick your spots and really then be disciplined to say, that's focus time, that's sacred time, nobody interrupts me. You tell everybody around you. If you have an office, you put a sign up on the door saying, do not disturb, or you'll be fired, whatever it is, but you've got to lock that time in. You'll be amazed at the increase in the confidence and efficiency and momentum and everything that goes with that.
Well, amen, Les, amen, and thank you. Because a lot of folks in my industry, we preach this, but when we say it doesn't have the power of the way you say it because of your expertise on the book and how all these experts that you've been around studying performance and focus. So that's fantastic. Let me ask you 2 more questions just to get people set up for the new year. Because some of this is a little daunting. And from the big stuff like a life movie to radically doing away with to-do lists and creating these focus blocks. If there was one thing you could suggest for the typical high-performance salesperson or leader or executive, where do you start? If you feel like your life's out of control, other people put all the work on your desk, right? You don't have any say in your calendar. You're just running around in circles. How do you even start to put your foot down and pivot and take back control so you can focus?
Well, it goes back to, that strategy of really being in control of your week, and don't jump every time there's an email, and don't jump every time there's a phone call, And it's really that self-discipline. And what do you do the first 2 hours of the day? I mean, well, how do you set the day up? That's one of the most critical parts of the day. How are you physically, emotionally, even spiritually, nutritionally? What do you do that first couple of hours? I find the top performers, they have a whole routine and they stick with it. And it's, what do you do the last 2 hours of the day? Are you on the internet the midnight? Are you playing video games the 1 a.m? Like a lot of these kids that I'm coaching, 14 to 18-year-olds, they're on video games at 2 a.m, and then they wonder why they're tired at school. But it's that simple. Once you develop those habits or routines, and I find that the top people, that's what they do. That's what's different. And they take regular breaks. If you want to go on at 6-7 days a week, 12 hours a day, you'll be burnt out before you know it. And to me, you plan your holidays at the beginning of the year. Great time to block off the holidays right now. And then stick to that. You need a break.
Awesome. All right, Les, let me ask you to wrap with this before I let people know where they can find you, because I think you could help a lot of people that are in my audience. You've got a really big heart. And as I've gotten to know you and respect you over the last, I don't know, it's probably been 6 or 7 years at this point. You've really pivoted, and you're spending a lot of time doing nonprofit work and trying to help people. And at the same time, you've got this thing going where you're coaching kids and looking to lift them out of poverty and give them a vision for their life. You're also writing a new book called The 5 Fundamentals. So just, could you tease us a little bit? What are the 5 fundamentals real briefly, and why does that got you so excited right now?
Well, what I did, Mike, I've been in the game here for more than 30 years, I mentioned. I distilled everything down a couple of years ago and said, if I only had 5 things that I find made the biggest difference for my clients and the lessons that I learned from some of the greatest teachers and mentors, it came down to this: awareness. Talked about that briefly. The life movie, big picture. Focus, obviously. Relationships, big question at the start of the year for anybody who wants to do better. Who are the 5 people that will give you the greatest leverage this year? Could you write their names down, all 5? And how would they leverage you? Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's an influencer, maybe it's a connector. Maybe it's a customer who's just going to open up more opportunities for you. Do you know who those 5 people are? And are you going to spend significant time building relationship with them? And the number 4 fundamental is routines. Like I mentioned, routines. How do you start the day? How do you finish the day? And lots more. And the last one is resourcefulness. My back's been to the wall more than once, and maybe you have too, but we all get stuck. We get sales slumps. All sorts of stuff happens unexpectedly sometimes. And the one strategy here, I coach all my clients, it's really magic. You always have 11 options. It doesn't matter what situation, you're back to the wall, you're nearly broke, you always have 11 options.
11. So I love it. Where does 11 come from? That's
well,
great.
I used to say 10. 11's different. So I added one more.
That's fantastic.
But here's the deal. If you force yourself to, you must write them down. You can't be thinking about it. Take a piece of paper, just write the 11. I guarantee probably one of those is going to spark something, and that'll start you moving.
Awesome.
So yeah, the book's coming out. The Kids Project is wonderful. Coaching kids, a lot of refugee kids, migrant kids that are really struggling, 14 to 18-year-olds. And I'm teaching them these 5 fundamentals through soccer. I'm a huge soccer fan. And so I'm doing my 2 passions at this stage in my life, and I've never been so energized. And that's the difference, I think, in a lot of people not hitting targets. They're not that energized. They're not on purpose with anything that's really meaningful to them. And I'm not boasting about me. I'm saying take a hard look at that. If you're not energized and you're not going and doing the things that need to be done, then you need to take a good hard look at what needs to be fixed.
Boy, Les, that's powerful. And man, I got to tell you this. Uber respect for you, and I love your heart and your passion. And you use the word energized. Every time I talk to you, I'm energized. So let's wrap with this. Where can people get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about the power of focused, if they're looking potentially for a coach, for someone to take them to a crazy new level when it comes to focus, performance, output, quality of life, where can people find you?
Well, go on the website, leshewitt.com. If you want to send me an email, it's les.h@thepoweroffocus.ca. We're in Canada.
All right.
.ca.
That's les.h@thepowerfocus.ca.
That's it.
And it's
leshewitt.com. You can find a lot on the
awesome.
website there.
Hey, thanks for sharing with my sales friends, Les. I know everyone's getting a lot out of this, and I wish you a phenomenal 2020. And thank you for what you do for me and what you do for the community.
Thanks so much. Have a great week and great year. Thanks for this, Mike. Appreciate it.
You got it, my friend.